All right. I'm going to be answering questions if anyone pops in here about quitting smoking weed. So we'll see if anyone pops into the chat here. My live time got a little mixed up tonight. So we'll see what happens. What's going on, Patrick? How are you? Right now, it's just you in here. So if you got a question for me, feel free to ask in regard to quitting smoking weed, in regard to the program that we're launching, and anything really. It doesn't matter. I'm just kind of chilling here, depending on who pops in. We'll see how this goes. Addiction is not a crime. I agree. I mean, in some cases, you might be breaking the law, but I agree. I don't think I'd ever call it a crime. But in some cases, buying drugs it is a crime. Maybe it depends on what state you're in. That would probably be relevant. If you guys got questions for me that you've been looking for me to answer, feel free to ask here. I'm just kind of chilling out and seeing where this goes. Oh, thanks, Sam. I appreciate that. Sam Wick Fitness, working on a sober 2023 yourself. That's awesome, man. It's worth it. I don't know. Sam, I'd ask you, when's the last time you've gone sober for a whole year? Right? Like, it's kind of a weird thought for a lot of people. And that's a question that I ask a lot of people. Like, we know what a year of substance use looks like. We know what another year of smoking weed looks like. It's probably going to look pretty similar to the year before. I don't know. It's a neat thing, though, getting to know a sober version of yourself, a version of yourself without drugs. It's a different thing. But if you guys don't have questions, I don't have anything particular to say. Yeah, so Patrick, okay. So Patrick, this is what I tell you. So in regard to following pro cannabis accounts on Instagram and explaining things to them that it's bad in large amounts, it's that's going to be ineffective largely because you're going to a community of people who don't have an interest in stopping. A lot of people who find me on YouTube, you got to remember YouTube is a search engine. So my videos are finding people based on the content that they're looking for. But it wouldn't be, like why go argue with someone? Why go argue with someone, I guess is what I'm saying to that. So I see what you're saying and I agree. I'm not surprised that you're met with like some kickback there. But yeah, I'm not sure. How long does it take to sleep after quitting cold turkey? Can marijuana cause sleep apnea? I'm not sure that it can cause sleep apnea, but I don't know the answer to that. But after quitting smoking weed, I tell people give it at least 90 days. Give it at least 90 days before you start to draw judgments when it comes to quitting and the response to the insomnia. For a lot of people, when they quit smoking weed, especially if you're a heavy user, if you've been using cartridges or dabs or heavy concentrates, high THC concentration edibles, a lot of people aren't even clearing the THC out of their system until they're hitting that 30, 60, 90-day mark. So in the first 60 days, you still might be going through an active detox process, in which case I wouldn't even yet expect your sleep to begin healing. So I would say give it at least 90 days for the sleep to start to regulate. And in the meantime, you got to do things to help promote sleep. So whether that's exercise, whether that's less screen time, whether it's a hot shower before bed, I mean, there's some supplements out there from time to time that can help. There's a lot of different things you can do, but yeah, it does take time. How do I start before 2023? I started using weed again. Longest I was sober was 10 months. Well, William, I mean, I'm going to be blunt that you can start quitting at any moment. You don't have to wait for it to be 2023. I mean, I would actually encourage people not to wait until 2023 hits, because a lot of times what happens is people wait until a certain day or a certain time and they think suddenly everything's going to change. They think suddenly it's going to be this magical day, this magical moment. And it's not, it's just another day. You start when you decide to start. That's it. So whether that's tonight, whether that's tomorrow, whether that's January 1st is completely up to you. And honestly, whether you start quitting tomorrow or you start January 1st, there's no there's nothing special. There's nothing different about either of those two start dates. But you start by not smoking. I mean, that really is that's it. You start by making the commitment to yourself that after this day, whether that's tomorrow or January 1st, I'm not smoking. Hell or high water, no matter what comes my way, I'm not smoking. That's how you start. Um, since I was 16, says Sam Wick, I've used weed to cope with college. Yeah, I started smoking weed in college to cope with the stress of exams, to cope with the stress of school. I had a lot of family stressors going on in my life at that point. Parents were going through a pretty rough divorce. And it was actually in college where I probably learned to use weed recreationally, but even more so as a coping mechanism. And that became a huge problem in my life because what the traits that I learned in college using weed to cope, I then learned to use it to cope with business, to cope with relationships as I got older, to cope with multiple aspects of my life. And, I had been in that routine for a very, very long time, coping with weed since college. And that was probably one of the hardest parts about quitting. This goes to William's thing. Starting quitting isn't hard. You stop smoking weed, period. You make that commitment to yourself. I think the harder part, though, which is to Sam's point, is figuring out new coping mechanisms, new methods to deal with whatever it is that life throws at us without weed. So now what do I do? That's one of the harder parts. Going to graduate this year, so it will be easier to be sober. Sam, yeah, I told myself a million times, man. I said I'm gonna quit after I'm done with college. I'm going to quit after I, whatever, get married. I'm going to quit after I get a new girlfriend, after I reach this goal. And the reality was, addiction just followed me every single step of the way. Um, Quitting college, starting the new year, getting a new relationship, it was all largely irrelevant to my quitting process. I think we always wait for this opportunity where quitting a drug is going to be easier. And I'll say maybe there's some circumstances that make quitting easier, or some circumstances where you're a little more motivated to quit than others. But that motivation and that ease will eventually fade, right? Because as you get into life, college to career, there's going to be a new set of challenges. And if you go into your career relying on weed to deal with those challenges, there's a good chance that's just going to carry over into that aspect of your life. So, Sam, I would tell you, quit when you want. If you've determined that's at the end of college, that's fine. But I would also caution you, don't have an expectation that it's going to be easier. Because if you have an expectation that it's going to be easy once college is done, and then you realize that it's not easy, that it's just as challenging, you're going to be thrown off. And then you're going to be inclined to say, well, I'll wait till next time around when it's easier. So, Steve the Canadian. The last time I didn't smoke weed every day was 4 years ago. I'm trying, but once you are in a rut, it's a cycle. It's hard to get out of. It's absolutely hard to get out of. Addiction creates a rut for us. Addiction is what gets us stuck in a rut, right? So we get addicted. Perhaps you start to isolate, and perhaps other aspects of your life start to go south, whatever those are: relationships, finances, fitness, mental health, physical health, right? And then this is the rut. And as things start to go more and more south, as things continue to go bad, what does your brain do when things are going bad? How does it cope? It copes by smoking more weed or by consuming more of the drug. So addiction is literally the thing, obviously, that's keeping us in the rut. And the only way out of that rut is by starting to escape, starting to walk away from that addiction. Digging yourself out of the rut is literally what kind of quitting, sobriety, recovery, whatever you want to call it, that's what it's all about. So I understand what you're saying about being in a rut, but it's a rut that perpetually just keeps digging itself deeper and deeper and deeper the more we smoke. And the worse we feel, the more we smoke, the worse we feel. And what do we do when we don't feel good? We smoke more to cope with that. That's the trap that addiction keeps us stuck in. Um, Yeah, Patrick. Yeah, there's a lot of people. Patrick, here's the thing, too. I don't really care. And you're talking about some of the Instagram pages with other people smoking weed. Like, I don't care that people smoke weed. Like, I could truly care less about what other people do. The only interest I have is my own recovery and sobriety process. I'm only concerned with what I'm doing with my life. And then I am concerned for people who also want to quit. But if someone's smoking weed and they say they're happy, they say they're less depressed, they say it's helping their physical pain, and they are content with smoking, or they think they're content and they have no interest in quitting, I have no interest in interacting with them or even trying to convince them to quit. I'm very for everyone should make their own decisions as they see fit. I'm very for live your life how you want to live your life. But if you're living your life right now in a state in which you are stuck in active addiction, and that's not the life that you want to be living, that's where I take a deep interest in that person and trying to help them out. So Patrick, I would tell you, stop wasting your time on it. So don't waste your time on people who don't want to quit. If they're not there yet, they're not there yet. They might get there and then you could be a source of explanation for them. But if they're not there, don't waste your time with it. Go do other things that you have an interest in. Christopher Swoda, 3 weeks, no weed after 20 years. Congratulations. I really, really congrats on that. Yeah, the insomnia is bad, Alejandro. The insomnia is rough. I was just talking about that earlier with someone. I usually say in the beginning, you got to give it 90 days for most symptoms, guys. And let me backtrack on insomnia. When people quit smoking weed, everyone's going to experience some type of challenge. And this is often the hard part about quitting. It's not actually quitting smoking, it's facing the challenge that quitting presents to us. For some people, that's going to be insomnia. For some people, it might be psychosis that they were dealing with throughout addiction. Someone else, it might be an eating disorder. Someone else, it might be chronic pain that they were trying to manage or hoped that they were managing by smoking weed. Everyone's going to have something when they quit smoking, some emotion, some feeling, physical or psychological. And it's facing those challenges, facing those emotions. That's what makes quitting tough, but that's what quitting is all about. Quitting is all about developing the tools to get through those emotions and those challenges. And that's exactly what we're going to be focused on teaching people in excruciating detail throughout our Livin Weed Free in 2023 programs. We're going to do that over the course of 21 live Zoom calls. But yeah, that's absolutely right. So that could be insomnia or any one of those things. But most things, guys, I say is give it to 90 days. Give it to 90 days. Don't draw assessments about your sobriety until you hit that 90-day mark, because addiction wants you to think how you feel in those first 90 days, the insomnia, the behavior, the anxiety, the depression. Addiction wants you to think that's how you're going to feel for the rest of your life. Because if that were going to be the rest of your life, well, then what would you do? You would go back to smoking. But for a majority of people, how you feel when you first quit, whatever battle it is you're going through, is not a battle that you're going to have to face for the rest of your life. It's a glimpse in time in the bigger picture. So make sure to think about that. Yeah, we got someone talking about quitting hookah. I mean, I'm sure I can make a video on it, but I would tell you that just applies to any of my videos on nicotine. And I would say a lot of my videos usually start. Um, a lot of my videos just talk about addiction as a whole. So I think any one of my videos, just replace the word weed or nicotine with hookah, and it's going to be somewhat similar, maybe aside from a cultural aspect to it. Successful New Year's resolutions usually begin before January 1st. You're absolutely correct, Sam. I fully agree with that. Here's the thing. If you're saying, and I'm saying this as a guy who's starting a program on January 1st for people living weed free in 2023, but full disclaimer, if your brain wants you to wait till January 1st to start quitting, if your brain wants you to wait for that moment in time, you're still playing by addiction's terms. So I think the best thing you can do when it comes to quitting is throw a curveball to addiction. Don't wait till if that addicted part of your brain is saying wait till January 1st, don't wait till January 1st. You've been playing by addiction's terms and addiction's guidelines for how many months, how many years, how many decades of your life, right? Maybe it's time you start to throw a curveball to addiction. If you're ready to quit, quit. Don't wait for January 1st. Nothing special is going to happen. Now, if you're joining our Livin Weed Free program, yeah, you're definitely going to have a bit more guidance and accountability along the way. Uh, but nothing miraculous is going to happen because it's January 1st versus, what's today's date? November 15th, tomorrow, November 16th. Someone says quitting for blunt smokers is more difficult because of the nicotine. To an extent, this is true. You have a weed addiction and there is also a nicotine addiction. And you probably are going to go through both sets of withdrawals. But I do want to throw this out there. I say this as someone who did struggle with nicotine withdrawal. Most of the nicotine is going to leave your body within the first 3 to 5 days of quitting, which whether you're quitting weed or nicotine or weed and nicotine, it's going to suck either way. So I don't know that it's more difficult for blunt smokers, although you do have the dual addiction, because no matter what, the first three to 5 days is going to suck. Like whether it's a withdrawal symptom from the weed or the nicotine is irrelevant. And that mixed nut, this is what I would say. Don't let that addictive part of your brain try and convince you that your journey to quitting is going to be more difficult because you're smoking blunts. Right? We love to justify addiction, loves to justify that your scenario is different because you're addicted to weed and nicotine. Addiction loves to say to a person, no, you're older, you're 50 years old, you're not younger, you've wasted time smoking weed. Your case is unique, your case is different. You're not able to quit because X, Y, and Z scenario. This is addiction running a narrative through your brain. And I'd be very, very careful, Dat Mixed Nut, to not fall for it. Okay. Because I hear that narrative all the time. It's the kind of excuses that addicted voice provides us with to justify continuing to smoke weed. Hethro, sober for 4 months. Thanks to me. No, thanks for supporting the channel and watching the content. Why does it take that much time to regulate sleep? Why do I say 90 days? You might be sleeping within the first 2 to 3 weeks. I don't know for sure. I just tell people on average when I see people quitting, especially if they've been using heavy amounts of THC, it takes some people 90 days to clear the excess THC from their body. So they're still detoxing at days 60 to 75. So the healing hasn't even truly begun yet. And we're not going to start getting better sleep until our endocannabinoid system starts to self-regulate. And it can't start to self-regulate if we still have excess THC floating around. And why can't you sleep? Because the endocannabinoid system plays a huge role in sleep regulation. So that's why I say 90 days, just to be careful on that. Yeah, anytime, Sam, anytime. Neil, if you slip, get back up and move on. Don't let a slip take you down. Yeah, that's absolutely right, Neil. You're 100% right. There's a big difference between a relapse, a lapse, and a slip up. And guys, a lot of times people will like be ashamed to tell me like I relapsed, I messed up. Why? Like what? So what? You smoked, right? Are you going to start quitting again? Yeah. Okay. So you were sober for 180 days. Make up a number. The number's irrelevant. Pick a number, 5 days, 180 days, 10,000 days, and you relapsed. You smoked. Okay. Are you going to go back to smoking or are you going to continue to quit? Because if you just smoked that one time, that 2 times, what's the difference? Did it impact anything? Did you lose your career? Did you lose your relationship? Did you go off the deep end or no? What happened? You got stoned, you watched some TV, you fell asleep, you woke up, and your life went on. You started quitting again. So that's a lapse. And that's not a big deal. People love to make it a big deal, but when you look at it, what went wrong? Nothing. You woke up the next day and your life continued on. And hopefully you made the decision to continue your life on down that path of sobriety and quitting. But yeah, that's my thing. Now, if you go deep down the rabbit hole again with weed use, well, okay, now we're in a different part. Yeah, Patrick, the dreams when you quit, I did a live on this recently. You're getting that REM sleep, that rebound of REM sleep. And that's a really, really good thing, according to a lot of sleep experts out there. That's your brain starting to process all of the repressed emotions, feelings, and memories and starting to create connections between each of those things. So the fact that you're dreaming again is really good news, my man. I think that those, it's incredible. Like when I was high, and maybe this was a state of psychosis, I thought I was solving problems in my life. I thought I was coming up with solutions to things. And really, I was just digging myself into deeper problems and more manic. I was just literally creating more problems for myself when I thought I was actively solving them as I was smoking weed. Once I got sober and I started dreaming again, and I started to actually sleep again, it's incredible the amount of the amount of things in my life that were going wrong that I was able to bring back to a correct direction, a better direction. And I think a lot of that has to do with reclaiming REM sleep after quitting smoking. Justin, thank you so much for helping me quit nicotine. I was in a serious addiction. I've been off for 15 days. Congratulations, Justin, man. Remember, it's around usually 2 weeks. A lot of times with nicotine, people run into like a little hiccup. It's usually around day 14 or 15 where your body will start to detox cocaine, a byproduct of nicotine. So, Justin, don't freak out if you get like a little another wave of like weird symptoms. It's going to pass shortly after and you'll be good to go. So awesome. Hughes, I've been stoned every day for 10 years to the point I can't even get stoned anymore. I want to stop. However, I found it actually difficult to stop. Hughes, I I don't think that's true, and I'm going to tell you why. You've been stoned every day for 10 years. You don't yet know what stopping actually looks like. Your brain has you convinced that it's going to be difficult to stop, but you have not yet actually stopped. And I would tell you this is a scenario of where just because you think something is true, just because you think it's difficult to stop, just because you believe it to be difficult to stop, does not mean that it's going to be difficult for you to stop when you actually put your mind to it and you actually start trying to quit. So, Hughes, I would challenge you and say, you know what? You told me you've been stoned every day for 10 years. So I have no idea how difficult or not difficult stopping is actually going to be for you. That would be my input. Yeah, Chris, I try to make this. I appreciate that, man. I try to make it true and relatable. Yeah. Anytime every day for 2 years. Yeah, a lot of people, guys. I was smoking frequently every night. I was only a nighttime smoker because I couldn't during the day due to my career and stuff. But I know it's weird, right? You're stopping something that you've been doing every day for a long period of time. That's an uncomfortable feeling, but you know what? That's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing about quitting an addiction. You're choosing to put yourself in a scenario that's uncomfortable to you. And by doing so in the future, when you're faced with future scenarios that are uncomfortable, you've now given yourself some training on how to manage those uncomfortable scenarios. Um, yeah, Neil, don't start taking Benadryl or insomnia to help with the sleep. Completely agreed, Neil. I think when it comes to insomnia, your best bet is to not take any drugs or any supplements. Our body's healing, our body's trying to re-regulate, and we have no idea what Benadryl does to the endocannabinoid system. Um, yeah, 100% keep it natural. Let your body run its own course. And look, if we're 6 months into quitting, 4 months into quitting and the person is still struggling, well, then maybe we'll look at some supplementation or something else. So, Sam, how I deal with cravings. Look, I have the mind. I have the mind of an addiction mindset. That's what this channel is all about. And guys, cravings is something that I have many things dedicated to in the Livin Weed Free 2023 program. For those of you that are interested in signing up, listen, man, a craving. I crave all types of things all day long, right? Some things are good, some things are bad. Some of the behaviors I crave are good, some of the behaviors I crave are bad. Um, I like to remind myself, what is it that I actually crave? And I'll give you two examples of this. So my brain is telling me I want to smoke weed. I want to go consume nicotine. Well, is smoking weed going to better my physical health? Because I do crave better physical health. I crave a better physique, right? I crave more energy. So I have the energy to come on here and do lives and do things after a very long day at the office, right? Is weed going to satisfy any of those cravings? Is weed going to satisfy my craving of more energy, my craving of better physical health? Is weed going to satisfy that? Absolutely not. So now I realize it's not actually weed that I'm craving, right? I might be craving another session in the gym. I might be craving a good night's sleep so I can have more energy to perform tomorrow that better than I performed today. So, what am I going to do? I'm going to take action on the things in life that I actually crave. And it's not weed that I crave. So, I like to reframe my cravings. Secondly, a craving is nothing more than an energy and a cue from my brain that I need to change my environment physically, mentally, whatever. A craving is a cue to take action on something. So, nowadays, I crave things that are a little different, right? I crave making more content, right? I crave, coming home and cooking food. I crave reading a book. You train your brain to crave, okay? The things you do on repeat, your brain will eventually crave. So if you come home and read a book every night versus getting stoned, or you come home and you edit YouTube videos every night versus getting stoned, you will eventually crave that. Okay. So it's up to you what you crave. Don't let anyone or anything convince you otherwise. Garrett, I appreciate that. I'm glad that you're finding inspiration in the channel. What's up, Hampool? What's going on? 1 hour at a time. Yeah, Neil, I love what you said about quitting 1 hour at a time. I think, Neil, I love what you said. A lot of people are under the impression that they're going to fight. Let's talk about cravings for a lifetime. And look, I didn't have a lifetime in me to battle cravings. Like that would have defeated me. If I had to spend the rest of my life fighting weed, I would have had eventually failed at that. Okay. I would have failed. Um, but I did have an hour at a time. I did have 15 minutes at a time. I could hang in there for 15 more minutes. I could hang in there for 10 minutes. I can hang in there for another hour. And then what? You hang in there and that craving passes. You hang in there for 10 more minutes and that craving's gone. So, Neil, I think what you said is so important about taking it an hour at a time, a few minutes at a time. Because if someone's under the impression they have to fight this for a lifetime, they're going to burn out. They're going to fail. So, okay, very good. Yeah, and Neil, also to your point too. Yeah, Luke Do. I'm glad. Yeah, everyone's brain is different. Absolutely. And Neil, you're absolutely right. A lot of times when people are quitting a drug, especially let's say weed, when we're high and we're under the influence of a drug, it's our brain is lying to us. What we think to be true isn't going to be true. What we expect to happen isn't going to happen. A brain that's drugged out is not a clear-headed brain. So a lot of things that are going through your head, they're not relevant. And I'm not saying your thoughts aren't relevant, but in the beginning, they're not. Your brain is trying everything it can do to keep you addicted, right? So, yeah, Neil, I think it's so important to differentiate, just as you've mentioned, the difference between a sober brain and a brain that's under the influence. Ham Pool, do you think someone who's previously addicted to something like crack or meth and now just smokes weed should quit smoking weed? Ham, it depends on the quality of the person's life. If someone was addicted to crack or meth and they now smoke weed and their quality of life has significantly improved and they are happy with where they are at in life, I would tell them to continue smoking weed. I would never discourage that person to stop. Now, Ham, if that person was addicted to crack or meth and they're smoking weed and they come to me and they say, I am not happy. I feel like I'm in the same place I once was. It looks different. The addiction looks different, but I'm not feeling that different. And I want out of this. I would absolutely encourage them to quit smoking weed. And Ham, I think the deeper question that you're getting to is that person going to relapse on crack or meth when they quit smoking weed? And the answer is absolutely not. That is that addicted portion of the brain trying to convince the individual that something is going to go wrong. So keep smoking. And that goes back to our conversation earlier. That's the addicted portion of the brain saying, you're different. You were addicted to crack cocaine. You can never quit weed, because if you quit, you're going to go back to crack. It's absolutely not true. You're different. You're 50, 60 years old. You've spent a lot of your life smoking. Your scenario is different than the person who's 20. Yeah, their brains are different. But this scenario, you smoke heavy dabs and they were only smoking in the evenings. You're different. You're going to be addicted for the rest of your life. It's addiction coming up with excuses and reasons to keep us under the influence. Now, again, Ham, that's assuming the person wants to quit. Mike Denver, I know I've talked to you, Mike, on and off via comments, and you're saying not much has changed. And, Mike, I don't know your situation. I don't know what has changed. I don't know what hasn't changed. But, Mike, if you're 51 weeks and 4 days and you're still staying sober, one, there's a reason why you're staying sober. And I don't know why that is, Mike. So I would immediately ask you, before I say anything, why haven't you started smoking again? If you've quit for a year and nothing positive has happened, why haven't you gone back to smoking? That would be my first question for you, Mike. Why? Why not go back to smoking at this point? I'd be curious. How long does nicotine withdrawal last? Most of the physical withdrawal is going to be 3 to 5 days when it peaks. Realistically, you could argue up to 2 weeks for the physical withdrawal from nicotine. And then for most people, after about 30 days, they're feeling good. And it's the same as weed. When you hit the 90-day mark, particularly with nicotine, the nicotine receptors in your brain will be back to normal levels. And it's typically around 90 days where someone starts feeling like really good after quitting nicotine. And guys, 90 days is a small fraction of time. 51 weeks, Mike, although a very long time, is a small fraction in time. Right? A year goes by like that for a lot of people. And I'm not saying that you should or you shouldn't go back to it. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, just keep in mind, guys, when I say 90 days and people are like, I can't do 90 days. Well, okay, can you do a lifetime of addiction? Do you want to continue doing this for the rest of your life? That's the question. I could do 90 days. I could do 90 days. I could do 20 days of some insomnia. I did several months of psychosis, of visual disturbances. I could do that. I couldn't do where I was in addiction the rest of my life. I didn't want to do where I was in addiction for the rest of my life. Yeah, Kano, I've been smoking since 13 years old. It got me through depression, but now it's gone stronger and I want to break away. Yeah, the literature on long-term weed use is that it significantly worsens depression. And a hypothesis behind that is because of its negative impact on REM sleep. Right? REM sleep is kind of the stage when we sleep, when our brain detoxes and heals. So, Kano, I would say a big thing for you is acknowledging that at one point, acutely, weed may have had helped your depression. Now, life's circumstances are different, right? The scenarios that were making you depressed then may no longer exist now. Maybe they do, but I'm thinking they don't, because presumably you're older than 13 now. So as life's circumstances change, so does our relationship with the drug, with the plant. So I think, one, quitting for you starts with acknowledging that. And then we have to further break down the perceived benefit that you have regarding weed and helping with the depression. You have to get crystal clear on the reasons why weed is no longer helping with the depression. Because if you don't become crystal clear on those reasons, quitting is going to be perceived as you're giving something up and you're giving up a benefit. And if that's the case, you are going to struggle for a very long time when it comes to quitting. So I hope that makes sense. And if you guys are enjoying this, any one of my video links, any one of my posts, check out the Livin Weed Free in 2023 programs. This is like surface level stuff as to what I'm going to be going into with the people who are in our Livin Weed Free program. And today's the last day for the coupon code for it. Okay. Anytime, Dean. You appreciate the help. That's awesome. Since 7/27/22, congratulations. Smoking for 18 years. Lots of people, guys. I talk to people who've been smoking for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years of their life. Lots of people have been smoking for a very, very, very long time. Don't don't let that worry you. Now, I want to talk to this, Alejandro. I keep having nightmares. Nightmares are very common when you first quit, but I want to differentiate between nightmares and then like PTSD nightmares. What I tell people is same thing, Alejandro. I'd say push for 90 days, reassess, because there's a good chance those crazy, wacky dreams are going to die down. If we're dealing with someone who's several months in and they're still having dreams related to PTSD, there might be a medication based approach to help, and not sleep medicines that they can talk about. And I wouldn't even start there. I would start more with like cognitive behavioral therapy and other types of therapies to help work you through some of those nightmares if they're that bad. I had crazy nightmares, but I was able to just tell myself, hey, Frank, you're going to the movies tonight. Is it going to be a horror film? Is it going to be an action film? Is it going to be a, sexy dream? Who knows? I had all types of things going on when I first quit. But yeah, and Alejandro, I want to say this too. Seeing yourself smoke in your dreams, this reminds me of something, is very common. When you first quit smoking weed, dreams of relapse are a very, very, very normal thing. And I think this is one of the many ways that addiction creeps into our subconscious mind, right? Here we are asleep doing nothing, and somehow we're dreaming about using. It always reminded me of the Harry Potter films where, like, Voldemort, I don't know if you guys have seen Harry Potter. If you haven't, this won't make sense. But where Voldemort would kind of creep into Harry Potter's dreams and his subconscious thoughts. I always viewed addiction as no different from that. Every now and then I still get a weird dream like that. Every now and then. But I know it's not real. I wake up and I'm like, oh, it was a dream. It's all good. It's all good. 3 months going strong. Zen Pretzel after 14 years of smoking. Look at that. Incredible. 14 years, 3 months strong. Corinne, there you go. 18 years, 14 years. Not much of a difference between the two, in all honesty. Yeah, vivid dreams, nightmares to vivid dreams. Yep. I love it. Dreams are messed up. It was like going to the movies. That's exactly what I say, Ben. I love that. Yeah, I like being able to dream again. Yeah, so Mike, something you might need to look into. I talked about this in my recent video on sleep, Mike. I would recommend checking out a recent video I did on sleep, because Mike, if you're still having crazy nightmares and you're not sleeping at all after a year, you got to start to investigate that further. Is there some other underlying health condition? Is there sleep apnea? Is there PTSD? Is there some other condition that weed was medicating you for that you're now that has now come to light that needs to be addressed, Mike? That's something that I would consider. I don't know about green syrup. I don't know what that is. I'm gonna guess it's like some type of weed oil or something. I don't know what green syrup is. I purple drink, right? Codeine, promethazine. I don't know about green syrup, unless that's just like a different terminology for that. I don't know. So yeah. Okay. Yahweh, I noticed that the high THC weed is only beneficial if taken very rarely. Once you increase the use of any drug, you build a tolerance. And what I like to tell people is you build a tolerance for the highs, but you never build a tolerance for the lows. So here you are chasing a high that you'll never achieve again. But if you truly are stuck in the grips of active addiction, I can guarantee you that you are going to hit that next low point in your life. Right when I thought I couldn't go any lower, I always go lower and lower and lower and lower. I stopped taking NAC because it's still smoking THC vapes. I'm being patient with taking NAC again until I'm committed to taking NAC without weed to smoke so much thought. Yeah, Garrett, that's a really smart idea. Garrett, when it comes to supplementation, especially on acetylcysteine, that's a very powerful supplement when it comes to curbing cravings. And you should only utilize it when you are truly committed to quitting. Because if you're taking it and then you're not quitting and you're taking it, you're messing with stuff now. You're messing with the glucothione levels in your brain. And now I don't know, but I would assume if you took NAC, continued smoking, eventually your body would just acclimate to smoking with the supplement in your system. So I think it's very, very smart that you're waiting. Very, very smart in my opinion. Um, Mike, I grew my own weed and I had more money as a result. And Mike, this goes back to a conversation that I have with some people, Mike, and I'm not encouraging you to do one thing or the other, but Mike, all I can keep saying is, which I don't see a response in here yet, um, why haven't you gone back to smoking yet? If your sleep was better, if you had more money, I know in other comments you said you had better relationships. Why haven't you gone back to smoking yet, Mike? That's my question. Um, Christopher, my biggest problem since quitting is a feeling of blahness. Everything's boring and not vivid anymore. I know from watching your videos this will go away. Yeah, so Christopher, this could be, and I don't know, like I don't, one, I can't diagnose you. Two, I would never do that over a call, but maybe there's some depersonalization and disassociation going on there. Maybe it's simply the anhedonia, right? I've made a video on anhedonia after you quit smoking weed due to the changes in dopamine levels. Maybe that's what you're dealing with. This does eventually go away. Christopher, though, or Chris, I would say you have to recreate that feeling of excitement in your life. And this is all about what our Livin Weed Free in 2023 program is about. If you guys want to join it, tonight's the end of the special. Any one of my videos, any one of the links, you can join. Um, but you got to create that excitement again in life. For me, a large part of creating that excitement again was starting a YouTube channel, starting a TikTok channel, turning that into a business. Now, this business is YouTube is probably the smallest part of my business that I do now. And YouTube was once the only aspect of this business that I do. So, Chris, I took that blondness and I just started pursuing things that I could be passionate about. And Chris, it wasn't exciting at first. Like even doing this stuff was not exciting at first. It just wasn't. Um it took time. But this is, Chris, I said this in a video I posted today. When people quit smoking weed, the challenge, Chris, and this is yours, isn't often quitting. It's what do I do and how do I deal after I quit smoking weed? And that's what we're making our 2023 programs all about. Just this exact scenario that you're facing. But on the flip side of all that deeper stuff, this could just be anhedonia, which is eventually going to clear up as your dopamine levels rebalance. And Chris, I don't remember how far into quitting you are. So, um, yeah, Luke, the stomach pain after you quit is pretty normal too. You have a lot of endocannabinoid receptors in your stomach, and that takes a while to rebalance. Probiotics can help. If you're super constipated, laxatives can help. If you're having crazy diarrhea, we usually see a mixture of the two when people quit. Psyllium husks or more fibrous supplements can actually help a lot. Yahweh says, I used to think weed helped my athletic performance, but when I quit, the difference was night and day. Due to the tar production. Yes. Cannabis, if you're smoking dry herb, hitting out of bongs and whatnot, yes, it does have a lot more tar than cigarettes. A lot of people don't know that. They don't even know tar is just a byproduct from burning it. It's not like they put tar in weed. It's a byproduct. That's what happens when you burn something. It's always bad for your lungs. Anytime you smoke something, it's bad. You could pick up a twig and I could roll up this piece of paper and smoke it and it'd be bad for my lungs. Yeah, and Yahweh, this goes to a lot of things. You're saying you thought it helped your athletic performance. There's a lot of people who thinks it helps their creativity, who think it helps their business performance, who think it helps their behavioral performance, right? We're all under the impression when we're addicted that it's helping us in some way, shape, or form. Otherwise, you would be making a hell of a stride to quit. But as long as you're under the impression that there's some benefit in one of those many categories, you're going to continue to use. And just like your scenario, in most cases, when the person actually does quit, when they actually do stop smoking, yeah, they find the opposite to be true. Just because you believe something, especially when you're under the state of active addiction, to be true, does not mean it's true. Um, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll keep the live stream up. Don't worry, Ham. I won't delete it. Making the 1 year mark, SBP. Congratulations. That's awesome. Good for you. That's great. Okay. Dean, yep. Weed is bad these days. Yep. Kamala is really high right now. Yep. Tea and honey before bed knocks you out. Yeah, Patrick, that's a great thing. And Patrick, I love what you're saying about tea and honey. And look, it could be anything. A lot of people say like, "Oh, I have insomnia." And I'll ask them like, "Well, what did you or I have insomnia, I'm having nightmares, I can't sleep." Okay. What have you done to help it? I tried working out and I talked to my psychologist and they said the only thing for me is Ambien. Okay, so you talked to one doctor and you did one thing that's promoting your sleep. That's nothing. How many things have you done to get high? Like how much effort have you put into getting high the last 9 or 10 years of life? Could you put in an ounce of that effort to trying to resolve the sleep issues or find a more reasonable solution to the sleep issues? You spoke to one doctor, talk to 10 different doctors, get 10 different opinions. Because a lot of times doctors don't know what they're talking about in some cases. They just don't. A lot of times they don't. Sleep might have not been that doctor's area of expertise, but they talk to you as if it was. Hell, when it comes to quitting, don't just get my opinion. If what I'm saying doesn't work for you, go find someone else. Get a million different opinions. Find something that works. Keep going until you find an answer, just like you kept going until you were high. Okay, so that's something. And why am I talking about tea? Tea with honey works for you. Meditating works for another person. A warm shower works for someone else. This supplement helps someone else. Doing a mixture of things helps someone else. There's a million different solutions out there. It's our responsibility to go and find them. No one is going to give them to us. That's the reality. That's the reality. You're talking to a doctor, they got 5 minutes, 10 minutes with you in that room, and then they're on to the next patient. They move on. You're the one who's not going home and sleeping at night. So, yeah, I really challenge you guys. Keep going. Keep going. Ben, my biggest tip for depersonalization and weed induced psychosis is talk therapy. Talking to someone who's been through it before, working with someone who's experienced in that field, and just being reassured that you're not going crazy. That is, in my opinion, the best thing you can do. Avoid alcohol, avoid other drugs, get a good night's sleep, try your best to, okay? I think supplementation can help. I'm a fan, and you guys talk to your doctors, do your own research, all that stuff. I don't think there's research out there when it comes to ashwagandha or KSM 66 for psychosis, but that's a supplement that I'd potentially consider looking into. Um, uh, yeah, Neil, I have to pee too much at 70 years old. Very reasonable. Yeah, very, very reasonable. Yeah, sleepy times tea, this, that. Cam, when it comes to brain fog after you quit smoking weed, again, this is a normal side effect and it usually just surpasses with time. I always found eating fruit to be extremely beneficial. I found exercise to be extremely beneficial. I found a very hot or a very cold shower would often snap me out of it, or like a sauna session. Or you guys really want to go extreme, do a cryotherapy session where they literally you step in one of those cryotherapy chambers, that will snap you out of any brain fog. Um, but and then time, and then just time, just time. The brain. I remember when I first quit stuff, guys. I sounded like a blabbering idiot. I mean, I like to think I'm somewhat articulate. Articulate. I messed it up. I like to think I'm somewhat articulate when I speak now. and when I first, as I say, when I first quit, I was just like, it was absurd how absurd I sounded. It's funny now. I'm focusing on talking well, and I'm just sounding dumber and dumber as I'm speaking. So okay, how can I quit? Oh, brain fog. We talked about that. Okay. Yeah, Patrick, not overthinking it. I'm healthier without weed, not overthinking it because it creates unnecessary stress. Patrick, this is a really good point that you bring up. Okay. The unnecessary stress. Someone just donated $10. That's really cool. I've never seen that happen before. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. That's exciting. Um, Unnecessary stress when you quit smoking. We've talked about this before. And I tell people this when it comes to my channel even. When you quit, you quit. I want to see you move on with your life. If you become obsessed with focusing on, is the insomnia from the weed? Is the anxiety from the weed? Is this from the weed? Is this weed? Is this weed? Is this weed? Don't do that. You're going to drive yourself nuts, and you're going to create situations in your head that just don't apply to you. One of the best mentalities for when you quit smoking weed is saying it is what it is. I didn't sleep tonight. I didn't feel well today. That's okay. That's today, and I'm going to see how I feel tomorrow. It is what it is. That is one of the most simple mentalities you can go into quitting with. And I think that mentality allows you not to get to a point of over stressing and over anxiousness. You're not sleeping. It sucks. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it right now. You're going through withdrawal. You don't feel good. You don't feel motivated. You don't feel, don't worry about it yet. It's too early. It's too soon. It is what it is. Just get through today, get through tomorrow. Um, Okay. So let's see here. I was using cigarettes and alcohol to relax after a tough day. Now that I'm sober for a week, I miss having something to celebrate with. Okay, so this is a great Manish Kumar. This is an excellent conversational topic, and this has to do with the reward. What is my reward? And I would encourage you to go watch the video that's posted on the page, the homepage of my YouTube channel with Dr. Anna Lemke regarding this. And the last 10 minutes of the video, we talk about this in detail. And she said this much more eloquently than I'm about to. She basically proposed, what if there wasn't really a reward? What if you were just in the here and now? What if you were just in this moment? And that was it. What if there was only this moment? And I didn't get that at first. I really didn't understand that. And then I found myself the other day, shortly after I had spoken to her, I was at work and I'm treating some patients. It's dark out at night. It's late. I'm tired. I have a really nice dinner planned with some friends. And I'm starting to rush. I'm starting to say, damn it, I wish that person would just get here. I want to treat them. I want to go to dinner. And at dinner was the reward to the end of my workday. And what I found was I was now rushing through my patients, right? I was becoming agitated and anxious and angry that I was still at work. Okay. All to rush to get home to indulge in that reward, which was this fancy dinner out with my friends. And for a second, I remembered our conversation and I said, Frank, what if there wasn't a dinner tonight? What if you weren't going out? And honest to God, Manish, I calmed down. I went from 1,000 to 0 in a matter of 2 minutes. Just saying, Frank, what if that wasn't there tonight? Then what? Would you be rushed? Would you be frustrated with work right now? Would you be rushing through this task to get through your reward? And the answer quickly became no. I was suddenly 1,000 times more relaxed, which became even more of a mind game because I was like, wait a minute. I thought I was getting home to relax with that reward, but is it rushing for the reward that's actually creating the stress? Weird, weird thought. So I would challenge you to mess around with that and watch the end of that video with Dr. Anna Lemke. Okay. Secondly, Manish, the reward, this is going to sound cliche, is whatever you make it to be, right? I come home, I eat a big fruit bowl every night for dinner. I literally crave that as a reward. I read a book. I get to come home and I get to do a live. I get to do YouTube videos. Those are my rewards. If I were to pick a reward, I would say it's probably book related. Buying a new book on Amazon, waiting for the book to come in, and then the excitement of reading that book has become my reward. That could be anything though, guys. I have hobbies too. Some nights I get home, I do target shooting, right? So one of my rewards is getting work done and getting free time so I can go attend to my hobby, right? There's many different rewards. Okay, a reward doesn't have to involve drugs. You're coming home and having a cigarette and alcohol. Are you watching TV? Maybe the reward is simply coming home and watching TV for a little bit. So the reward is whatever you make it. It's whatever you make it. But I would also challenge you to think about not having a reward. Yeah, for those people that can work out, if you're not too sick, I think exercise is a crucial aspect to anyone's sobriety. Look, people will call me or they'll text me, clients that I work with, and they'll say, I'm freaking out. What do I do? I'm about to relapse. And I'll literally say, go for a walk. Get up, go outside, go for a walk, and then text me back. Okay. And 90% of the time, when I say, how do you feel when they come back? They're feeling better. They're feeling different. I feel better. Go take a shower. Don't care if it's hot or cold. Move. Change your environment. Stop freaking out. It's your mind messing with you. Go do something. They come back 30 minutes later from doing something, doing anything, and they're feeling better. Okay? The last thing you want to do is sit there and negotiate with the addiction, negotiate with the craving. Addiction is an unreasonable thing. Do not try and reason with something that is unreasonable. Addiction does not understand reason. This is not an argument you will win. It will result in relapse, right? So get up, move, change the environment. And working out, why am I on this rant? Because working out is an excellent way to do that. Working out helps to boost confidence and boost dopamine. Working out should be an essential part of anyone's quitting process, in my opinion. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Anytime, Red Apple. Thank you for being here. Patrick Todd, of course. Faith is a great thing. Absolutely. Faith-based quitting journeys, 100%. 7 years, 10 days sober, L Pitzer, after quitting nicotine. Congratulations. You're in the beginning. You're in the beginning. And how you feel right now, whether it's really good or really bad, is not how you're going to feel forever. So just remember that going forward. You'll be good. JG, 30 days. That's what's up. Yeah, that's absolutely right, Neil. We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. Yeah, that's absolutely right, Neil. I love that. Right? We can't use weed as a solution to our problems when weed is the cause of our problems. Right? Treating something as the solution that's the cause does not work. FamG FPV, what's up? I quit today and I had a slip up. I smoked one blunt. The cravings are thick. That's all right, Amber. That's all right, Amber Holloway. Get back to it. Get right back to it. Right back to quitting. Cravings suck. Cravings suck. Sometimes they're heavy. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. That's it. That's it. I'm glad that you're here though today. I'm glad that you made it here. FamG FPV, 5.5 months. Look at that. I was window shopping designer weed on Weed Maps, and I reminded myself that CHS is not worth it. Yeah, guys, so many people say to me, it's funny, and this goes back to the reward comment when it comes to cigarettes and alcohol and weed. Someone said to me, Dr. Frank, I'm finishing my exams and I'm thinking I want to celebrate with weed. I'm thinking I want to reward myself with weed. And I said, well, why did you quit smoking weed? And they said, well, I was getting more anxiety. I was becoming more socially isolated. I was also losing money in my bank account. And I said to them, what's the celebration? What is the reward in ruining your mental health? What is the reward in draining your bank account on something you don't want to be spending it on? What is the reward in socially isolating yourself from the people that you want to be out celebrating a good time with? What is the reward in that? And the answer is there is no reward. What is the reward in drinking alcohol and smoking a cigarette? Because what's the outcome of that reward? Cancer, right? If you drink and you smoke, the risk of oral cancers is significantly higher than top three causes of oral cancer: alcohol, cigarettes, and HPV infections. Chewing tobacco isn't even on the list, believe it or not, when it comes to that, the top causes. So what's the reward in that? There isn't one. There's not a reward in that. People say, well, the feeling I get. What feeling? The feeling of isolation, the feeling of having less money in your bank account, the feeling of cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome flare up. Where's the reward in that? Because that is the feeling. So that's what it's yeah, there you go. So okay, what do we got here? What do I think about psychedelics therapies? I don't know, guys. There's good literature out there on it, but maybe down the line, some people might need it, some people might not. I don't know. I'm obviously a very like I don't like anything that messes with my brain. Right? I don't like anything that takes me out of my own mindset. Now, what if your brain is out of control and psychedelics can help to rebalance it? I don't know. I don't get into psychedelics. I honestly probably never will. I probably never will go down that road with people. I'm very of we create the mindset, not a drug, not a substance. And if it turns out it helps in the future, great. I'm all for it. But for right now, I don't think it's necessary. Um, and I'll tell you why. Because I come across people who have gone through insane challenges and insane trauma and insane circumstances. And they created success without any of that. They didn't do a psychedelic. They didn't do a thing. So I see those people and I'm like, if they could do it, why couldn't I do it? Why couldn't you do it? Why do you need a psychedelic and they didn't? That's kind of where I come down to, right? Like, um, just a general comment. General comment. I'm sure that's a much deeper conversation. Um, okay. What do I tell myself in the first day to get through the second when the cravings kick it? So, Amber, we talked about cravings a little while ago, but in short, Amber, I said you have to remind yourself, what is it you actually crave? Is it better health, mentally and physically? Is it more money in your bank account? Is it more energy? Is it more time to do things that you value? What is it that you actually crave, Amber? Because I think if we answered that question, we would quickly find that it's not weed. And if that turns out to be the case, you have to realize that by consuming weed, you're not going to satisfy your cravings. Look, if you're craving something in life, whether it's more money, better business, better this, better that, whatever, okay, um, and smoking weed doesn't directly put you in a position where you're going to satisfy that craving, where smoking weed doesn't put you in an advantage to getting closer to satisfying that actual craving. It is actually holding you back from the things in life that you crave and accomplishing those things. I crave building one of the largest addiction recovery communities when it comes to quitting weed and nicotine. And arguably, in about a 2 year time, I am on my way to doing so, right? Um, we were featured on Channel News Asia and aired across like 28 areas in all of Asia for our social media channels on this stuff. That's mind blowing. Okay. That's what I crave. Smoking weed is not going to get me there. Smoking weed is not going to get me a better body in the gym. Hitting nicotine is not going to do that. So at the end of the day, I don't crave those things. I might think I do, but just because I think something doesn't mean it's true. Just because my brain tells me something doesn't mean that it's not a load of bullshit. My brain tells me things all the time. Frank, you're not good enough. Frank, I had horrid anxiety before this live tonight. I don't even know why. I'm not even talking to people one on one. Okay. And then I logged on at 8. It failed, uploaded a short clip, had to restart the whole thing. That ramped up more anxiety. I tell my brain, doesn't matter. Just because you think you're anxious doesn't mean you actually are. You're doing the live. So, Amber, what we tell ourselves doesn't mean it's actually true. JG, 30 days weed free. Feels fantastic. Love it. Patrick Todd, don't overthink it. Absolutely. Stop negotiating with the cravings. The answer is I'm not smoking weed, period. Let's move on. What are you going to go do? You're not smoking? What are you going to go do? What are you going to go do? Exercise, work on something, sleep, watch TV. What's next? We determined you're not smoking. No more need for the conversation. You can tell that addicted voice in your brain, that part of the conversation is shut down. Not happening. Okay. 100 days off of nicotine. Look at this. 1 month and 10 days. We got people in here crushing it between nicotine and weed. Absolutely crushing it. Yeah. Eighth House Alchemist. Congrats for choosing not to be numb and mediocre. Life is about feeling the good and the bad aspects, right? If I'm going to embrace the good aspects of life, I have to also feel. I don't necessarily embrace the bad things, but I have to feel them. That's the problem with weed. We don't get to pick and choose what we numb out, what we tune out, what we tune in. You don't get to pick and choose with addiction. Okay. Yeah. And that's right. Eight House Alchemist. You want something better for yourself. That's really what quitting's all about, guys. And I'll say that I love seeing the days, 10 months, 6 months, for 5 days sober. I love seeing that, guys. But I love all the more like that creation of a better life for oneself. Being sober is cool. Awesome. Love it. What are you doing with it? What are you doing? What did you do in those 2 months? Maybe it was just getting sober. Maybe that's all you could do in those 2 months. Maybe it was a really shitty 2 months. That's okay. But I'm excited to see what you're going to do in the next 5 months, the next 5 years. That's what I'm into. That's what I like. And that's exactly what our Living Weed Free in 2023 program is going to be about. Those of you guys who are enjoying this stuff, I'm telling you, we're going to have these conversations, 21 private Zoom calls with a group of people. It's this on steroids, okay? Not in the Liver King sense, but and you know what I mean. Okay. So staying busy, drinking water, eating food. Yeah, it really is a test, Red Apple. Addiction is a test. Quitting is a test. It is a test it's a test of grit. It's a test of strength. It's a test of commitment. It's a test of perseverance. It's a test of all of those different things. Absolutely. Without question. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, let's see here. Okay. Franklin, Mike, at some point, Mike, thank you. I see you did a donation, Mike, for $2. Mike, what we will do is this. I'm going to tell you what, not tonight, but I do want to chat with you. And this is how we're going to do it, Mike. I think me and you should do a live where we talk together, where me and you go live and speak. And Mike, let's do this. I think you have my email. If not, I'm going to find you on my YouTube channel and write you my email. And let's pick a time and a day where me and you can do a dedicated live together, because I think it would be very relevant. I think that live would be very relevant to a lot of people. So Mike, we will plan that. I will hit you in the comments tonight. Been off of weed and cigarettes for 5 weeks and I smoked for 36 years. Getting a very bad temper, says Stephen Harris. Yes. So, Stephen, just like I say to a lot of people, we're all going to get something when we quit. Insomnia, anxiety, bad temperament, stomach pain, sweating. Who knows, right? This is your thing right now, the temperament. Okay. So, Stephen, first question, what have you done thus far to work on the temper? What techniques, what therapies, what have you searched on YouTube? Have you searched on YouTube how to deal with anger, how to deal with a temper, techniques to manage this? That would be my first question, Steve. What have you done so far to manage it? Okay. And this is a very common thing that you're experiencing. Very, very common. I had the same thing, especially when I quit nicotine. I was like very bad with this when I quit nicotine. Um, Okay. And Steve, I'll throw this out there too. Again, I mentioned it earlier that supplement KSM 66 can be a big help. Read about it, take it at your own risk, talk to your doctor. I don't know you, I don't know your health history, but KSM 66 has been clinically shown to reduce stress and balance mood. So that might help. Okay, let's see here. I wish I could quit, says Smoke Dog 95. You don't need to wish, man, or girl, or whoever you are. You don't need to wish. You can quit. The only person telling you that you cannot quit is you. Okay? The only person telling you that you are incapable of doing this is you. And that is because you are under that addicted voice in your brain. And you need to start to separate yourself from that voice. You are not your addiction. You, on the contrary to what the world likes to tell you, are not an addict. Now, I kind of am an addict, but I'm not that mad about it because I'm addicted to some good things in my life right now. But you are not that thought. That is your addicted voice. Okay? That's the addicted voice talking. You can quit. You need to start telling yourself that you can quit, though. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. Said, I think that was Henry Ford. Okay. All right. I have been weed free since Thanksgiving. Unbelievable. Awesome. Unkillable monster. Fantastic. And Patrick Todd, to Patrick Todd's point, you can quit if you truly want to. And I'll take that a step further. Even if you partially want to, you can quit. There's a lot of things sometimes that I don't want to do that I like have to do at this point in my life, at this point in my career, right? There's things that I don't fully want to do, but I got to do them. You can do it. You can do it. You're the only person telling yourself you can't, right? Right? I wish I could hit 1 million subscribers. Why can't I? Right? Why not? Why not? At one point, I wished I could quit smoking weed. I did it. If I could do that, why couldn't I do that? Different way of thinking. Different way of thinking. Okay. Yeah, Mike, we should pop you in. Yeah, Mike, I think you're in our addiction mindset accountability group. That's a good point. FAMGFPV. I should add Mike to that. I'm going to set that up. I'm going to set that up too. You bring up a very good point. Okay. So, yes, Franklin Focus, living weed free in 2023. That's the tagline. That's absolutely the goal. You know, and like I hope it's that year for a lot of people. For some people, it won't be. And just like last year, a lot of shit's gonna hit the fan. Like, you know, I go into 2023 saying it's gonna be a good year because I choose it to be so, right? Shit's gonna hit the fan though. I don't know. Is it COVID? Is it election stuff? Is it politics? Is it the latest crappy news cycle? Is it my fucking practice catches on fire? I have no idea, right? I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to do my best though to make sure to make sure that it's a good year. I'm going to take actions and precautions today to set myself up for a good year in 2023, right? Because the actions I take now set myself up for a good year. Why do I know it's going to be a good year? Because I've spent the last 2 or 3 years working on 2023 being a good year. So even if 2023 isn't a good year, the actions I take in 2023 is going to set up my year in 2024 to be a good year, right? The actions I take today are to predict better outcomes tomorrow. So that's what it's all about. Yeah, Neil, life on life's terms. I know exactly what you're talking about. That's a very common quote when it comes to addiction recovery, right? And it's basically saying we're going to live life as it comes our way. Living life in the happy moments, living life in the sad moments, living life in the moments of celebration, and living life in the moments of grief and despair. That's living life on life's terms. That is living, being alive is experiencing things, not being numb to it. And although I had very negative aspects to my life, I had many good aspects to my life too, starting with a roof over my head, water, and food. Those are aspects in my life that I am very lucky to have, right? Parents, really bad divorce, some other relationship things within the family, not good stuff in there too. But on the flip side, I had my health for the most part until I got CHS and psychosis. So, yeah, it's just as life comes at you. Hobbies and exercise, lots of congratulations to people. Guys, I'm kind of burning out here and I'm losing my voice and I got to save it tomorrow because I got to go here. So, yeah, I used to give my dealer a lap dance to get high. All this very normal. We've all done kind of weird things to get high, I'm sure. I've stolen money from family members to smoke weed. I've done a lot of crappy things to get high. You guys, I love all the support in here. I'm just checking out all the support in here and just all the comments, and we haven't even been able to get to them all, but you guys have been handling them. I'm like way behind on some of the comments in here. But I'm gonna have to go. So this is uh um this is what we're gonna do, guys. I'm gonna do this again sometime soon. For anyone who wants to go further, check out the Livin Weed Free in 2023 program. You can find that program in any of my video links, including the one I posted today. Highly recommend signing up. All right. And I'm going to try and do a few more Q&A sessions like this before we officially launch that program, just to get it going. I'm hoping for 50 people. I think right now we got like 9 or 10. We're doing it no matter what. If I had one person, I'd do it. They'd get a hell of a deal. But I really appreciate you guys being here and making for this great conversation. You guys had incredible questions, and I just love all the support. It's an incredible community we have over here on this channel, guys. So, all right, guys, we'll be in touch. Bye now.